Bernard Desmidt 22 years ago. You just packed up shop, and that wasn't sort of, some teenager throwing some things in a bag and packing up shop. This is with your partner, 2 kids, obviously perpendicular in career and so forth. You moved from South Africa, so a lot's happened in that time, but maybe we can start at that vintage.
Yeah, no, thank you, Kevin. If I reflect back on my life, I looked at in 2 halves, and the first half is the bittersweet half, being born into and living through apartheid. I recall living in this tension, this conflict I could never reconcile, the conflict between being born with such privilege, yet all those around me lived in such pain. The life I led of deep compassion within family and community, yet surrounded by others living in such cruelty. The intimacy of relationships, the intimacy of connection in society, and yet, on the other hand, such injustices. So it was a very bittersweet time, and it's only when we did pack up in 2000 and arrive with a suitcase on the shores of Sydney did I realize the gifts in the bittersweetness. And I've only very recently come to realize and express these gifts in what I refer to as the 3 gifts of the essence of Africa that have very much shaped who I am and what I do. Would it help if I just share these gifts, Kevin?
I'd love it if you would. Yeah.
Yeah. They take the form of African expressions, and the first is siyabona, and siyabona is the Zulu word for hello. But what it actually means is, I see you, and by seeing you, I bring you into being. I hold you as a legitimate other, and that's powerful in the learning and the work I have come to do, and the privileged work I've come to do. The other is Ubuntu, which is a Xhosa word, which means, literally translated, we are because you are, and since you are, definitely I am. So what does that mean? It means I am who I am thanks to you, which speaks to the interdependence, and you'll see these themes running in the work I do with teams, the relational nature of human beingness. And the third gift, what I refer to as the essence of Africa, is when we bid each other farewell, and the term is hambagashli, and hambagashli means, we use it to express goodbye, but what it means is travel safely and take deep care of yourself, which is the wish of care we bring to others, the wish of care and deep compassion. But it's been, the privilege of the second half of our life in Australia that has enabled me to sort of access these gifts and bring them through the work I do, and deeply privileged in that regard.
This was it Ubuntu, the second one that you
correct,
the second one that you referenced?
Yeah.
This touches pretty deeply on a few categories of philosophy, which unfortunately usually stay cloistered in the stuffy halls of academia. But I think the essence of, in a professional world, the essence of me being who I am because of who you are is so underexplored, but so profoundly true. So we were writing and contemplating this with respect to the role of a salesperson And if they don't weigh who they're meant to be in that role, which I consider to be quite an honorable craft, as against who their buyer is, or just their interlocutor, it could be a prospective buyer, then suddenly the richness and the tenor of that relationship goes wrong. If they think of it in a very shallow and unidimensional way, I just kind of sell you this stuff, that's it. They can only ever expect to get some symmetry back from the other person if they consider it in sort of a multi-layered and deep way, that I actually am responsible to bring many things into this conversation. I have to be nuanced in the way that I show up. Then lo and behold, the fellow on the other side starts to show up in a nuanced and subtle way as well.
Yeah.
I really will need to go back and check out the South African context for that word, because as soon as you mentioned it, the idea that we are who we are relative to relative to the others.
Correct.
Has depth.
Profound depth in not only in the quality of our human existence, but in our capacity to work, engage, and achieve together. It is the essence of the best of our human beingness when we come selflessly to one another, and in our selflessness we access the mutual greatness that we bring. And it's part of human nature. Ubuntu is not a skill we lack. It's just permission we give ourselves. Yeah.
So what I'd like to maybe do to launch into this book, and for those who will listen to this and on, there's a couple of ways you can connect. One is just buy this book, which is great, and just do so. Bernard's website is his first name and last name with a .com at the end. But you kick off with some paradoxes, and if you'll indulge me, I'll just read a section. See if you recognize the author, Bernard.
You really read your own books, yeah? You're so
yeah. But one of the reasons we love to speak to authors as opposed to just other, great, smart folks is, by the time you've finished a book, you've been over the material forwards, backwards, in your sleep, with the editor, on your own, and the stuff is really committed.
So true.
High-performing teams happen by design. Good intentions and espoused commitment are no guarantee. Design is a consequence of discipline. High-performing teams apply discipline, and teams do not become teams because they call themselves teams or because they have engaged in some team building activity. Team building may help in getting to know people better, but discipline is essential to achieving as a team. And then I just skip to the second paradox. Given that teams are so powerful, why is teamwork so rare? If teams create a sense of belonging and identity, why do many team members feel unsafe to speak their truth and discuss the undiscussables?
Yeah, Kevin, it's fascinated me for so long, as the first 20 years being an executive member of teams in international organizations in South Africa and more recently in Australia. What I refer to as the sort of the penultimate paradox of teams is what I call the 80-60-20 paradox. And this only came to me after I wrote the book, and I hence didn't include it in the book, but maybe this is the next book. But why is it that 80% of leaders claim to spend 60% of their time in teams, yet for only 20% of the time are they flourishing? And my aim, my intent in this book is to demonstrate the possibility Now, this is not easy. This is not easy, but so possible. Can you imagine if we shift 20% to 40% of the time flourishing? If that were to happen, there is infinite possibility to accomplish what would never be imagined possible. We live in the real world. We'll 40% of the time to flourish would be all you need to sustain a competitive advantage that will never put you in reach of any other competitive force.
Mm-hmm. So when you think about what the world would look like at 40, and you work across geographies, sectors, do you see pockets where it's cresting above that 20 and on its way?
There are definitely pockets. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I think, these disciplines I refer to, and we'll no doubt touch on them. They universal principles. They universal, timeless, natural laws of how do we access the best of our collective capacity and capability. Because here's the thing, Kevin, teams exist to achieve what no individual or group can. Mm-hmm. They are the predominant unit of organizational performance. But this first paradox, and we accept that they are the predominant unit of performance, yet most of the time teams are completely consumed by the tactical operational matters and so little time on the strategic transformational imperatives. Mm-hmm. You go, well, why is that happening? Why is that happening? Why are they so powerful and so rare? Why? If we think about it, on the one hand, we're relational, social beings. Our teams are our tribe. It's where we belong. It's who we identify with. But increasingly, we are feeling less and less safe to speak our truth, to challenge the status quo. What's happening there? Why is it that the teams have access to the collective capacity and capability, yet we operated less than the sum of the parts for more of the time? Now, you ask yourself, well, why is this happening? Is this because of our selfishness, our preoccupation with self, our preoccupation with what we can control, the avoidance of risk, the avoidance of pain, the overwhelmed sense of fear and anxiety we have, and the last 3 years have triggered this and exacerbated this, that on the one hand, we accept the normality of uncertainty, but the prolonged exposure to such uncertainty through the last 2.5 years has, I believe, left some real areas to explore, and has made this increasingly difficult for us to come to terms with what we've had to deal with. Mm-hmm.
I want to, as you were speaking about that, I want to ask you about the role of a leader on the problem side. We were just talking about the thorny problem that it is, that you might have universal assent and acclaim to the concept of a team and the understanding of teamwork and the unbelievable effectiveness of the magic when the sum of the parts is greater than the component parts. And yet, that's still rare. Which team members are responsible for that? Because there's usually at least one team member who has the title leader, that ignominious title sometimes. Is it on their shoulders?
This is a very interesting point. And in the book, I make the distinction between 4 types of teams: combative teams that fail, competitive teams that flounder, cohesive teams that function, and collaborative teams that flourish. And here's the thing: many teams function well as a team, but because they function, they think they're flourishing.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the distinctions, and these distinctions are helpful until they're not, but one of the distinctions between a functioning team and a flourishing team, in a functioning team, there's one leader in the room.
Mm-hmm.
In a flourishing team, there's 6 or 8 leaders in the room. The
Mm-hmm.
CEO is not the leader of the room, just the leader in the room.
Mm-hmm.
And this is such a subtle but significant distinction, because in flourishing teams, there are 8 leaders in the room. And what does that mean? Well, we each are taking collective responsibility for this.
Mm-hmm.
Because when there's one lead in the room, the chances are, well, I'm deferring to them setting the agenda. I'm referring to them, defaulting to them to determine, levels of accountability and to be held responsible. No. In a flourishing team, we each carry individual and collective responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
Because these distinctions between a functioning and a flourishing team are so subtle, but profoundly significant to begin the journey to transition. And let me just, if I just highlight a few of these, I was working with a team that assessed themselves to be, based on the 5 discipline assessment that comes with the 5 disciplines. They assessed themselves to be a very functioning team. But it was interesting, in my conversations with them before we engaged, they all referred to the team as being very harmonious. Now, I don't have an issue with harmony, but there's a dark side to this harmony. And that is where I use harmony as an excuse to avoid dealing with the difficult issues.
Mm.
We're so preoccupied with maintaining stability and cohesion. And so functioning teams, they move to a convergence of thinking, more towards thinking alike. That's why they deal best with complicated issues. Flourishing teams move to a divergent of thinking. They default to difference. And herein lies the inherent paradox. Flourishing teams, collaboration has to dance with conflict. Cohesion dances with similarity.
So if you engage a harmonious team like the one that you were describing, you must have to walk a very careful line to say, you know what this crew needs is a little bit of conflict. How do you bring that into the mix without kicking over the table?
Well, I do invite that at some point in the day, maybe 11 minutes past 10, we're going to prick the harmony bubble. But Kevin, the thing here, and I think that this probably goes to the essence of this distinction. Collaborative, flourishing teams have a fundamentally different relationship with conflict, challenge, and criticism.
Mm-hmm.
They come caringly in conflict with one another. What do I mean by that? Caring conflict. When I caringly conflict with you, my intention is to explore alternative ways. Uncaring conflict, my intention is just to push you over. Caring criticism, when I come caringly in criticism of you, my intent is to help you learn. Uncaring criticism, my intention is to weaken you. That's why teams flounder. Competitive teams come in criticism with the intent to weaken, because I'm competing over you. Caring challenge, when we come caringly in challenge of one another, our intention is to deepen understanding. Uncaring challenge is just to shut you down. So, how do we move a cohesive team? We give ourselves permission to declare our intent. And it's as human beings, whilst we are deeply complex systems, all we've got to do is just observe our intention. Our intention is either caring or uncaring.
Mm.
Our intention is either power over or power with.
Mm-hmm.
Collaborative teams, there's unquestionable trust in the intention because it's declared, it's not assumed.
So if you have an individual in a case like that and they say, look, my intention this time around, folks, is I'll just put it up there. It's selfish. I mean, I want to get out there and, make a great name for myself, and I want to be put up in lights. That's my intention. Therefore, and then they put forward whatever it is. That's one kind of selfish intention. There could be many. In the types of teams, the flourishing team that you're talking about, do I as a team member pass the mark because I've been forthright, or do I fail the mark because I'm being forthright about something that at the start is selfish?
Kevin, every team is made up of individuals. So we've got our own goals and aspirations and KPIs. So that's understandable. But the difference here is my energy, is my time, is my thinking consumed with what I'm aspiring, or am I bringing what is required of me, not expected, required of me, what I'm committing to give of myself to achieve the collective performance goals? So flourishing teams, individuals flourish. They strive and achieve their own objectives and goals. But most important, there's an uncompromising commitment and accountability to the collective goals. And those are the two hands that wash each other, me and us. So no problem in a flourishing team with Sally or Joe standing up and saying, this matters to me, and this is what I'm striving for, and this is what I'm measuring as my success. Great.
Yes.
Now, how do we coordinate action to achieve what we're here to do? Because teams exist to achieve what no other entity can. So no problem with me espousing what I'm achieving. But teams are about us. It's about we. It's about our, and it's inviting and legitimizing that there these two of these forces at play all the time.
Yeah, I think perhaps the character that I was trying to create there is preempted by, and here maybe I can just jump into this 5-point framework. But in the first case, the team has to discover their mandate. Well, there's 5 of them. I'll read them if that's all right. Discover their mandate, declare their purpose, design their culture, deliver their results, develop their learning. I imagine there isn't a whole lot of oxygen for a truly down to the bone selfish asshole if you've already got to pass 1 and 2, discover your mandate and declare your purpose.
So true, Kevin, because this is about us, not me. And it's interesting. One's just got to listen to the language that is used, and the predominance of I, me, and my versus we, us, and our. And you talk about, and this is often, I'm never failed to be amazed when I start working with a team, how interchangeably they refer themselves as a group and a team, but so subtle and dare I say so significant. And I'm not positioning groups as bad and wrong. No, absolutely. Groups can achieve amazing results, but never what a team can. So when we talk about discovering the mandate, in a group, groups declare the mandate. Teams know the mandate. They know what their stakeholders expect of them. It's never assumed, it's known. And I cannot tell you, I'd say 90% of the time, when I ask of the question, what do your stakeholders expect of you? What do they appreciate about you? What are they looking for you to change? And what do they find difficult in their relationship with you? In 90% of the time, that's assumed. So I go and get that data. We bring them into the room. So teams are in service of the mandate they've been commissioned with. Groups determine the mandate.
Mm.
So when I'm determining the mandate, I determine what I'm going to do. So it's all about me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not coming in service of the other. I'm coming in service of me. So, then when we discover and we align and deeply honor the mandate, then we can move into the second. And these disciplines typically follow the sequence. You'll appreciate there's a seduction to discipline 4, deliver. An absolute seduction. And I will never start at discipline 4, because my point here is teams rise and fall on the quality of their working relationship. So to get a better result, we first got to shift the quality of the working relationships. It doesn't work the other way around.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go back to the sequence. When we've discovered our mandate, then we move into the second discipline, is around declaring our purpose. For what sake do we exist? Groups focus on what they do, teams focus on why they do it. So what's the cause we're serving greater than ourselves? For what sake do we exist? What's that unifying purpose? Now, I was working with an executive team, and we, when it came to declaring their purpose, I just simply asked each individual and the 8 members of the team to write down their purpose. Well, no surprise what they wrote. And using various different words, all of them said, well, our purpose is to achieve our strategic objectives. And I said to them, I didn't ask you what you do, I asked you why you do it. Now, the words, it's the journey that they went on. The words I'm going to share with you are going to probably mean less than the experience that they went through coming to these words. But this team came to realize their reason, and it's a team in the medical technology industry. Their purpose, the reason they exist as a team, is to change others' lives for the better. Kevin, it was palpable when they came to it has fundamentally shaped how they show up to their stakeholders, fundamentally transformed the focus, the energy, the orientation to what they do and how they do it. It's powerful, and you can start seeing how we start building this collective momentum, and that's all it is. This is not once we've hit transforming, no, this is about the sustainability. We never not challenging, we never not questioning the mandate, we never not testing our commitment to our purpose. And then we move into discipline 3, which is the discipline to design our culture, our ways of working together. How do we commit to engage uncompromisingly, engage and relate when teaming together and apart? What's the experience we want others to have when they engage with us individually and collectively? And this is about the declaration of these behaviors that we uncompromisingly commit to. And this is where we explore and shift the quality of the working relationship. And I stand on the shoulders of giants, and one of those giants, Gloria Kelly, who gave us the 8 elements. And I've focused in on the book, the 8 elements of effective working relationships. And I've tweaked this model ever so slightly, because 5 of those 8 elements are fundamental to our way of being together as a team. And our way of being together profoundly impacts our way of doing together. So that's the respect. That's the trust. It's the appreciation we share of each other. It's the moods we show up with one another. It's the concerns we deeply legitimize and understand each brings. Now, there's so much more to all of this, but those are the 5 elements to our way of being that we explore. The 3 elements of the relationship that relate to our way of doing are the quality of our conversations, our capacity to speak our truth, not our mind. That's disrespectful, but to speak our truth. To have, in a flourishing team, there's no such thing as an undiscussable. In functioning teams, we avoid because conflict is inherently wrong. To go to the undiscussable will destabilize the harmony, so we avoid them. So the quality of conversations, our capacity to coordinate action, to get things done. How do we coordinate action with one another? That's the 7th element. And then the 8th element is the alignment of where are we heading to and how might we get there. Now that's going to be, you can imagine, quality of conversation, coordination of action, and alignment is impossible when there isn't enough respect, trust, appreciation, when our moods, our collective team moods, and this is a whole nother area of focus I bring. And when we shift the collective mood to be of greater resourcefulness to the team, moving from moods of resentment and irritation and annoyance and frustration and anxiety, how do we move to moods of acceptance and ambition and curiosity and wonder? And then when we've built this cadence of culture, we move into discipline 4, which is about delivering. And here's the thing, Kevin, it's never happened. We've got close to it on maybe 1 or 2 occasions when I asked the team individually to write down what are those 3 collective performance goals the team are holding themselves individually and collectively accountable for, that they can only achieve working interdependently. It's never happened that every team member has identified the 3 same collective goals. And then the question is, for what sake are we teaming? So it is only at this stage that we come, whether discipline 1, 2, 3, of course we can interchange, we can start, anywhere between 1 and 3, but
sure,
never start on 4. But here's the real gem, discipline 5. And that is about development. It's about the collection of our collective wisdom. It's about the responsibility flourishing team members take for their own and each other's learning, success, and growth. It's our capacity to learn with and from one another. It's our capacity to admit to mistakes. It's our capacity to learn from the collective successes. And it's interesting because scores on this discipline indicate the highest probability of a team to transition to flourishing. Teams that score highest on discipline 5 have the greatest potential to shift to flourishing. In this assessment, so there are 5 indicators per discipline. So the 5 disciplines assessment gives you a wonderful insight. There's a quick version of this on my website, free, just play with it. It takes 10 seconds to do. But the real assessment, it's interesting. 2 of the lowest scoring indicators, repeatedly that come up. The lowest scoring indicator is the team behaviors and shared ways of working have been identified and consistently upheld. This is consistently the lowest scoring. Because teams don't have to commit to a shared way of work. Groups don't have to commit. The second lowest scoring is team members are open to receiving and giving feedback to each other on their performance and behaviors. It's the second lowest scoring indicator.
Wow.
Now, it's a long way to answer your question, why are teams so powerful but rare? Because we fear exposing ourselves. And I'm not saying this is it. We are closed to learning with and from one another. We are fearful of being vulnerable with one another.
Mm-hmm.
Because in a competitive team, it's vulnerability is weakness. In a flourishing team, the deepest and greatest attribute is our vulnerability and humility.
Mm-hmm.
I've taken a lot of airspace there.
You have a section in the learning chapter. I'm going to poorly paraphrase it, but it's something like embrace the fact that you are a beginner.
Mm.
That in my world, we go around, we set up academies for organizations. Usually there's some very powerfully pedigreed, powerfully experienced people. And you see a remarkable thing happen, that at the very top of those organizations, they are so open and interested in learning things, including total fundamentals. And once you go down about, one step or two, a rung or two, that's maybe where you get the maximum resistance. And that's a really interesting difference, I think, when that section stood out to me. And as you were talking about the selflessness required, naming yourself a beginner on any given thing is a massive act of humility, and in my experience, from my lens, quite rare. So if that humility is what makes teams so rare, I can just echo that. I see it through the sliver that I see professionally, and it doesn't surprise me now that you say it, although I didn't see the connection at first, that's part of what makes the team rare, is that you have to see these quite valuable but rare characteristics in people, virtues in people.
So true. But here's the thing, declaring myself a beginner doesn't illegitimize what I already know and the experience and expertise I have. The mindset of declaring myself a beginner, not just declaring it, the deep conviction I bring in being a beginner means I'm open to being influenced and to unlearn from you and with you. It's the Ubuntu. That when I declare myself a beginner, I'm opening myself to see what I don't see, and adding to my knowing, and being open to be unknowing. And that's what flourishing teams, they're more open to unlearning than learning. And what I mean by that, they're more open to have their perspectives challenged, to have their beliefs expanded. Because to deal with complexity, we have to think in new ways. We have to come to doing new ways. Functioning teams hold on to tried and tested because it works when it does. So, yeah, we work through with the team because we all have enemies and allies of learning. But this is about acknowledging, coming to see, how do I get in the way of myself as a learner? And what learner do I want to become? So when we explore that question, it never surprises me how often when team members come to identify their allies of learning, the most predominant ally of learning is the permission they give themselves to declare themselves a beginner. And that's the ability and the humility to let what I know be held tightly with an open hand.
I imagine being in learning and development for years and years, and only this last 2 weeks going to the etymology of develop, which is the same. It's the velo is the same root word as envelope, right? To close something up. So it literally, development is literally the same word as uncovering. And that just says that in the heritage of that word, because words change meanings over time, but in the heritage of that word, it means that you take off the veil of something that's already there, that's latent, that, you know, you don't have to add it on and bolt it on, that it's in there. That is not the standard way of thinking about development. I think that usually personal development, professional development, learning and development has this additive quality. So when I saw your allies and is allies and enemies, yeah?
Yes.
Just the powerful concept that for many things, and especially things within the realm of values, attitudes, moods, this is not going to be additive. You're not going to take somebody through a course and suddenly now they have those values, but to make space for things to emerge, to have things like the kind of healthy care-based conflict that you're discussing. Those are places where things that are latent, that already exist, get the chance to develop in the original sense of develop.
And you make such a valid point here, Kevin, because this is the distinction I bring between team building, team development, and team coaching. Each have a place, but team building is about forming. Team development is about informing how do we come to decisions, the processes, the protocols. Team coaching is about transforming. So it's, you know, the etymology of transforming, moving across the form. What does that mean? It means in the form of mind. So team coaching, this is, I always say when I work with teams, I'm going to teach them nothing new, but they will learn. Mm-hmm. And that's about holding the space of being more vigilant and diligent observers of themselves. We can't change what we can't see. So only when we see things differently do new possibilities arise. And the transition from functioning to flourishing is not a skill deficiency. It's I'm just not observing. How am I showing up? We're not observing our moods. Mm. We believe we're controlled by our moods. Well, you are until you're not.
Bernard, so, can teams make that? Can teams jump that chasm without coaches? It seems to me like you almost have to have a guide to get you from functioning to flourishing.
You know, it's very difficult. It's very difficult. It's virtually impossible because, you know, I think we all would appreciate unless we guided through, unless we enabled, it's very difficult to see how our thinking, our assessments may not be serving us, because you know we always in assessment of ourselves and others, but if we don't see the distinction between our assessments as just being beliefs and opinions, and here's the thing, we hold our assessments of ourselves and others to be the truth. No, they're just my truth, they're not the truth. So we've got to create that space between when we open that space, we then open the possibility to see things differently. So, you know, to answer your question, invariably very difficult to do this without the help and the support of having one's assessments challenged, and when I say challenged, just brought to the attention. Mm-hmm. And you know what I do as part of this learning, and this is typically, you know, when we work with teams, and I work with teams, this is an 8 to 12 month journey, but we move through and we spend a month more or less on each of the disciplines, but after discipline of design, only then do I then sit in the corner of the room and watch the executive at play. And the only question I have is just to highlight when I'm observing behaviors that fly in the face of their shared ways of working. Because it's natural, we default back to what I can control and what I can influence, and
no doubt.
So yeah. But to answer your question, invariably almost impossible to transition to flourish without help and assistance. We can get to functioning on our own. Yeah.
I mean, that as you're describing it, it strikes me that you could come across a lot of functioning teams and you might give them a gold star on their lapel and go, good for you. And yet they, and maybe even an outsider, would probably concede pretty quickly that, by the way you define flourishing, that's not there.
Yeah.
And it just seems to me like you'd need that external eye. But when you think about, the world's a big place and there's a lot of teams who would value the ability to cross that chasm. There's only one Bernard Desmidt. So you can take the clients that you have, and they'll have there's at least one guide on the planet who can get them there. Where does somebody who's in Austin, Texas, or Lethbridge, Alberta, or Warsaw, Poland, who can't get on your docket, where do they go if they're interested in that?
No, yeah, thank you for that wonderful endorsement, and I'm humbled, Kevin. There's some exceptional team coaches, and I think this is where, in the space of development, in the space of transformation, the space of learning, where team coaching is having profound impact. And there's, like anything, we need to be clear on these distinctions, because team building is not team coaching.
Yes.
Team development is not. Now, each have a role. And dare I say, when I'm working with a team, of course I'll bring in elements of team building, and that's not building a raft and crossing the river together. Although there is merit in that.
That's crossing a different chasm.
But it's not transforming anything. It might mean having a lot of fun and therefore getting to know each other, which is important, but it transforms nothing.
Yeah.
This is about transforming. This is about the evolvement of our thinking, the evolvement of our becoming, our collective becoming.
Mm-hmm.
And it's for that reason executives work with an executive coach. It's now increasingly the reason executive teams work with an executive team coach, for the same reasons. We can't change what we can't see. And this is about, facilitating lasting transformational behavioral change.
Well, so I think there's maybe a strong case to be made for people to dig into your writing for that reason alone. If you onboard a team coach, that is a big decision. You're really opening in a very intimate way to someone. I think people understanding what you've been thinking and researching and writing about can serve as a great rubric to try to make a decision like that, because a decision like that can't be taken lightly. There's someone up the street and they say they're a coach, so why don't we get them in here to guide our team? I'm not trying to disparage coaches the world around, but rather it's a very difficult decision to evaluate what do we want a coach to do, because you're sort of at their mercy in a way. You're asking them to guide you. So I think there's an entire readership for the book, which is people who are trying to make that decision and just need to inform, where a team coaching experience ought to be headed.
But Kevin, the most important thing, it's never the CEO that decides on my engagement, it's the team. And I spend whatever time and effort it takes, whatever, and this could be months, working with each individual, and in the analysis phase, collecting their perspectives on what they appreciate about the team, what they're finding difficult in their membership of the team, how they're contributing to the team's success or the lack thereof. So these discovery conversations I have with each team member before, and they do the 5 disciplines assessment. So I'm bringing data back to the team. And this is before their commitment to work with me.
Yeah.
This is before. So the first thing we do, we say, let us share in our perspectives and understanding of how we see individually and collectively this team. And then on the basis of that, we'll decide how to proceed. Because I will not commit to work with a team that's not committed. There's too much at stake. So I will only commit to the committed. And if I sense there's a veiled commitment, I will raise that. And we will never pass go until I sense and they understand and appreciate what this requires. And this is not to say this is onerous and torturous, not at all. But this is not a 3-day retreat.
Yeah. No.
This is a 12, 24, 36-month journey. Now, what I mean by that, the first 8-9 months are pretty intensive around recalibrating, shifting, transforming the mindsets, identifying all of those 5 discipline elements. And then we just maintain this cadence. And typically, in some respects, I'm meeting quarterly with teams. In other respects, I'm meeting, every 6 months. In some respects, we come back annually and we just test. But this is about the sustainability, because Michael Dell said this so beautifully. He said, a culture of teamwork is the most competitive advantage any organization can have, because it's the only thing a competitor can't copy.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why would you not look to this as the most sustainable, the most guaranteed competitive advantage? Why would you not?
Yeah, that's so powerfully true. Particularly a competitor that's a spin out, somebody who's inside and like, oh, I've got the IP, I know the clients, I know it's like they can go leave if that's it, if they're leaving a flourishing team, or maybe even just a functioning team.
Yeah.
They are out in the wilderness all on their own.
Yeah. And in this great resignation, team members of flourishing teams don't resign. They stay because they derive so much fulfillment in being part of something that matters, and derive so much meaning in the impact they're having. The greatest retention strategy is a commitment to transition to flourish as a team.
Yeah.
It's guaranteed. But this is enormously challenging and difficult. This is not easy, but the possibilities are infinite.
I just want to double down on that from the learning perspective. If you take on discipline 5 as well, it isn't just that it's hard to leave on the day you maybe a competitive offer comes through, or you're feeling a little weary or something. It's actually a guarantee for your role and development on into the coming years as well, right? Like if discipline 5 is being undertaken, you don't just go, I, Kevin, feel great about the team that I'm in, and I'd be heartbroken to leave it today. You instinctively, intuitively know I'm actually developing here. I'm getting better. Kevin, 24 months from now, inside this team is like definitely, clearly a better professional. Outside this team, tough call. Tough call if I'm going to be able to stay on a professional development track like this.
You know, if we feel we're learning through the day-to-day course of the work we do, that's the greatest retention strategy. When I feel invested in, when I feel able to become more, to learn more, and to do more. Yeah, as let me share with you one of the things that has probably had the most profound impact on Discipline 5 is what I call now, I think I wrote about this in the book, is what I refer to as the gifts of 1s and 5s. Now, let me explain this. Very quickly in the piece, we start gifting each other the gifts of 1s and 5s. And what I put to the team, you know, if we think of a sort of a 5-point rating scale, you know, the most unhelpful, the unkindest, the most irresponsible rating on a 5-point rating scale is a 3. It says nothing. Cowardice. Now, yes. You already start seeing the beads of sweat on the forehead. Now, I'm not saying, you know, on the 20 indicators we're assessing, it's either 1 or 5. No. I'm saying on the 20 indicators, find at least 3 gifts of 1 and 3 gifts of 5. And this is not a declaration of the other's weakness and flaw. No. Because the gift of 1, the caring in the gift of 1 is I'm saying, Kevin, this is what I believe to be your greatest learning opportunity. The gift of 5 is not to put you on a pedestal. No. The gift of 5 is to say, please, Kevin, leverage this, bring more of it. So, and this is as simple as this is. I don't know how it came to me, but it did. This has profound impact. In organizations I'm working with, the corridor talk, the performance reviews have taken a completely different proportion. They talk about the gifts of 1s and 5s, and they lean into them.
I love it. I hope you don't mind that I am going to, with reckless abandon, steal that phrase. That is awesome. I'm going to get the gift of 1s and 5s. No, that's a beauty. And you made me laugh out loud on cowardice, because I love that word, especially for professional behaviors that are just sort of milquetoast in their styling. Yeah, 3 is the worst. Even worse than 2.5 is a 3.
Even worse.
Yeah.
Worse.
Yeah, just a sappy, syrupy non-answer.
It's yeah, and you know, just look at the ratings in functioning teams. There are a lot of 3s. Flourishing teams, no 3s.
That is awesome. Well, if you end up writing a third book that specifically ties in on feedback and learning, I'm expecting to see a chapter called cowardice.
Cowardice feedback, a rating of 3.
That's right. Bernard, you are getting your day going there, and we said we'd keep it to an hour, so let's stick to our word. I think the final thing has to be where people can find you. So that is the book, Team Better Together. It's not improper grammar. Team is a verb in the title of this book. Awesome book. So people can obviously just find that by Googling it and finding it. But where else should folks track you down if they want to read what you write, hear what you say, speak to you personally, etc.?
Sure. The book's available on Amazon. It's a little cheaper if you buy it off the website. But anyhow, there's a little plug. But please, jump onto the website, www.Bernard Desmidt, my first and last name all as one.com. Subscribe to there we
I'm
go.
just sticking it up for the spelling.
Lovely.
People will maybe miss that D right there. That's
yes.
There are 3 D's in total in this
There's
name.
3 D's. I'd love your listeners and audience to subscribe to the newsletter. I send something out weekly, leadership and team themes and topics. And if anyone's interested in continuing this conversation, by all means, just give me a ring, email me. It's all on the contact details on the website. So thank you so much, Kevin. It's been an absolute privilege and love speaking with you. And I treasure our relationship and look forward to many more such conversations.
Me too.